The first day of February had just broken over Naypyidaw, and fitness instructor Kin Ninwai was filming her aerobic dance routine to post on social media. And as she went about her moves, the military in Myanmar went about conducting a coup. Army vehicles sped behind her, taking back control from the civilian government of the country and detaining the elected representatives of Myanmar. Oblivious to the coup d'etat unfolding behind her, Kin Ninwai continued to record her dance competition entry video and then posted it on social media. The fitness video went viral as the world woke up to the military takeover of Myanmar. The news spread that NLD leader and symbol of democracy in Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, was under arrest by the military. The fitness video had unwittingly captured the last moments of Myanmar's decade-long experiment with democracy.
Simple disobedience.
The NLD had secured a landslide win in the November 2020 elections, marginalizing the army's political party, USDP, to 33 seats. The newly elected parliament was scheduled to meet on Monday morning when the military, in a TV broadcast, declared a one-year state of emergency. State councillor and leader of National League for Democracy, Aung San Suu Kyi, was detained and put under house arrest. The Myanmar president Win Myint was also detained. NLD leaders were arrested and MPs under armed military guards were lodged in a guest house in Naypyidaw.
The army is very apprehensive that with the kind of landslide that Aung San Suu Kyi's party has got, the NLD, and with her master stroke of roping in the ethnic parties and creating a huge sort of strength in the parliament, they were apprehensive that there will be changes to the constitution, and that is where the army has moved. Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, is the army chief, has a personal reason. He was supposed to retire this year, and he saw he tried very hard to lobby with the NLD that he should be, anointed the future president of the country. Because unless he holds a former position, he is facing sanctions at a personal level. His bank accounts in the Western countries have been freezed. So for Min Aung Hlaing, it was now or never. He had to be president. Aung San Suu Kyi and the NLD refused.
Myanmar became independent in 1948 but had been ruled by the army from 1962 until 2011 when democracy was restored. In 2010, when elections were held, the NLD won a decisive majority. But under the terms of the new constitution, Aung San Suu Kyi was not allowed to head the government. She was given the post of National Councillor, but for all practical purposes, she had remained the power behind the civilian NLD government. 2 days after her detention, Myanmar police charged Aung San Suu Kyi with possession of illegally imported walkie-talkies.
To some extent, this was not unexpected. It was clear that the military were going to look for some legal case against the leaders of the National League for Democracy, and especially Aung San Suu Kyi, to actually legitimise what they've tried to do, and that is really a power grab. They've accused her of importing illegally a certain amount of communications equipment, which are walkie-talkies. This is a relatively minor crime, but unfortunately, if she's convicted, it does mean she will not be able to stand for elections in 12 months' time if the Tatmadaw, the military, go ahead and allow those elections to take place.
The opposition to the coup has been hardening in Myanmar. When the detained MPs were set free on 3rd February, they decided to hold a mock parliament session the next day in protest. On 5th February, senior NLD leader Win Tin, a long-time confidant of Aung San Suu Kyi, was arrested. He had earlier given a call for civil disobedience.
NLD also, some of them at least, and especially their international, friends, some of whom are quite powerful and, active, actually may consider taking this whole issue of an illegal military takeover to the International Court of Justice. It again boils down to the fact, that if the neighbors, China, India, and ASEAN, continue to trade, if they feel it's business as usual and change of a government, even if it's a military government, doesn't matter, then the international community and the NLD inside Myanmar, their options become less and less. If the neighbors, swing off, especially ASEAN and India, then things change. So there are a couple of variables on which this whole thing depends.
The international community, meanwhile, has condemned the military takeover of Myanmar, and the possibility of imposing sanctions might be on the cards.
The Burmese military should relinquish power they have seized, release the advocates and activists and officials they have detained, lift the restrictions on telecommunications, and refrain from violence.
The military, after taking control, cancelled all domestic and international flights and suspended telephone and internet access in major cities. The stock market and banks were closed. The military announced that it had handed power to Army Chief Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, who is now in complete control of Myanmar.
Responding to Aung San Suu Kyi's call for peaceful protests, the people of Myanmar took to civil disobedience. Most students did not turn up for classes, carried out rallies, banged pots and pans to create a din for democracy, while the military has blocked Facebook, one of the popular social media platforms for people of Myanmar. That really has not dampened the spirits of the people and citizens of Myanmar.
Pots and pans does a protest make? This Yangon neighborhood is making noise to register their support for Aung San Suu Kyi and a National League for Democracy NLD party. Sporadic but noisy protests like this has broken out across towns and cities in Myanmar against Monday's military coup. People have been seen waving cell phone torches and honking car horns to register their displeasure at the turn of events. The outbursts of displeasure come fraught with danger to those participating in these peaceful demonstrations. In the past, before the restoration of democracy in 2011, when Myanmar had been strictly ruled by a military junta, the reprisals against any show of dissent had been swift and harsh. Health workers joined in with the announcement of a civil disobedience protest against the coup. Wearing red ribbons, they declared they won't work for the new military government. The workers sang an adaptation of the Kansas song Dust in the Wind, titled Kabar Ma Kai Bu. Translated in English, the title means "The world will not end." It was written as a revolutionary song shortly after the 8th of August 1988 student uprising in Myanmar, also known as 8/8/88.
Putin's critic Alexi Navalny has been sentenced to his first real imprisonment for nearly 3 years this week. He appeared in court again on charges of defamation. While Kremlin continues to mount charges against him, the international community is coming together demanding his release. In a recent meeting between Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov of Russia and European Union's foreign policy head Josep Borrell, the meeting was carried out amid heightened tensions where the EU bloc demanded that Navalny be released and that the persecution come to an end. A defiant Moscow has not given in or given up. Rather, what it is doing is expelling 3 European Union countries' envoys, that of Germany, Sweden and Poland. And even as that is happening, where on foreign policy and diplomacy front, Russia is failing terribly, the United States of America coming out and saying that Russia will have to pay a price for the actions that they're taking against Navalny, people and supporters of Navalny within Russia have taken to the streets. Protests continue across Russia.
Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny made a heart sign with his hands and smiled at his wife Yulia from behind the glass panel of his holding cell, while the court proceedings against him went on. The Russian court pronounced a jail term of nearly 3 years against him on 2nd February. The court's decision to turn a 2014 suspended sentence into real jail time will see the 44-year-old Russian anti-corruption campaigner serve a lengthy prison term for the first time. In 2012, Navalny and his brother Oleg were accused of overcharging a French cosmetics company subsidiary for services with their transport company. Prior to the sentencing, the cosmetics company admitted that it had suffered no damage. But a Russian court in December 2014 nonetheless handed the brothers sentences of 3 years and 6 months apiece. While Navalny's sentence was suspended and converted into house arrest, Oleg served his time behind bars. European Court of Human Rights in 2017 denounced this conviction. This very corruption conviction has come back to haunt Navalny again in 2021. Referring to the 2014 conviction, this time the court said that Navalny was accused of violating parole conditions by refusing to check in with prison officials and was arrested when he flew back from Moscow on 17th January from Germany. Navalny spent months recovering from a nerve agent poisoning attack that he accuses Kremlin masterminded.
Причина этого всего – ненависть и страх одного человека, живущего в бункере. Потому что я нанес ему смертельную обиду тем, что я просто выжил. после того, как меня пытались убить по его приказу.
While his legal defense team prepares for a review appeal, protests continued across Russia. So did the Kremlin crackdown on Navalny's supporters. His top associate, Lyubov Shobol, was fined 1,000 rubles on charges of disobeying police on the day of Navalny's return to Russia for waiting at the airport. The editor-in-chief of Media Zona, Sergei Smirnov, was sentenced to 25 days in jail on charges of making calls for unsanctioned protests in support of Alexei Navalny. Hordes of Navalny supporters who gathered in peaceful protests were also detained.
Сама по себе эта протестная волна является, на мой взгляд, едва ли не крупнейшей в истории путинского времени и вообще постсоветской России. И эта ее крупность, она определяется, вот так мы можем о ней говорить, в силу совершенно необычной для протестов ранее в России ее географии. И в этом смысле волна продемонстрировала очень большой потенциал недовольства режимом, гораздо более широкий, чем казалось до того.
Thousands were arrested at protests against the jailing of opposition leader Alexei Navalny has now strained the capacity of detention centers in Russia and its judicial system.
Задержанных больше, чем их могут обработать вот эти вот изоляторы. И задержанных больше, чем можно оформить в сжатые сроки. Поэтому возникают, к сожалению, такие последствия. Но еще раз повторяю, здесь нужно говорить не о последствиях. В первую очередь нужно говорить о том, что это люди, которые приняли участие в незаконных акциях. Соответствующие органы принимают все возможные меры с тем, чтобы исправить эту ситуацию.
The US, France, Britain, Germany and EU have called on Russia to immediately and unconditionally release Alexei Navalny.
The Supreme Court of Pakistan has acquitted British-born Al-Qaeda leader and terrorist Omar Sheikh, who was accused of involvement in American journalist Daniel Pearl's murder case. Ahead of the FATF plenary in February, it seems like Pakistan is in a tight spot. On the one side, they're trying to get off the grey list. On the other side, it will be very difficult to explain as to why and how Pakistan is allowing such acquittals of terrorists on its soil.
This man, Ahmad Saeed Omar Sheikh, has been ordered to be set free by the highest court in Pakistan. Convicted and now acquitted in the case of the beheading of American journalist Daniel Pearl in 2002, Omar Sheikh would be shifted to a safe house. This, as directed by the Supreme Court, as a stepping stone towards his possible full release. Despite all efforts made by the family members and the provincial government of Sindh, the court dismissed all appeals against the acquittal of Sheikh and his 3 accomplices of charges except abduction.
Government representative insisted that he should not be released. The August Supreme Court of Pakistan has ordered that till next date of hearing, he may be kept under surveillance, supervision at some security place. Okay? But he should not be in the jail.
In April 2020, the Sindh High Court on appeal had overturned the murder conviction against Sheikh and had found him guilty of the lesser charge of kidnapping. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. But as Sheikh has already been on death row for almost 2 decades, the sentence was counted as time served. A 3-judge bench on the Pakistan Supreme Court has now ruled 2-1 in favor of upholding Sheikh's acquittal by the Sindh High Court and ordered that he be immediately moved from prison to a safe house.
It's not a complete freedom, it is a step towards freedom.
The United States of America expressed outrage over Sheikh's acquittal. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken demanded accountability in his first phone call with Pakistan's foreign minister.
The United States is outraged by the Pakistani Supreme Court's decision to affirm the acquittals of those responsible for Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl's kidnapping and brutal murder, which shocked the world's conscience in 2002. This decision to exonerate and release Sheikh and the other suspects is an affront to terrorism victims everywhere, including in Pakistan. We recognize past Pakistani actions to try to hold Mr. Pearl's murderers accountable, and we do note that as of right now, Omar Sheikh remains in detention in Pakistan under national security authorities. But we call on the Pakistani government to expeditiously review its legal options, including allowing the United States to prosecute Sheikh for the brutal murder of an American citizen and journalist.
Omar Sheikh is one of the 3 terrorists that India had freed in Kandahar, Afghanistan, in exchange for the hostages of the hijacked IC-814. In 2002, Daniel Pearl, as the South Asia bureau chief of the Wall Street Journal, had been investigating the link between Pakistani militants and one Richard C. Reed, dubbed the Shoe Bomber, who had tried to blow up a flight from Paris to Miami with explosives hidden in his shoes. Omar Sheikh is accused of arranging a meeting in Karachi and luring Pearl to meet one of Al-Qaeda's top leaders, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed.
There's an overarching sense that Pakistan has not been doing enough to combat terrorism. I mean, Sheikh was a convicted terrorist in India, and he ended up in Pakistan because of a prisoner exchange. So he has a record of terrorism, and there's every reason to think that he will continue.
Khalid Mohammed, who is being held at US detention center of Guantanamo Bay, is said to have confessed to having personally killed Pearl. However, since the admission was made while he was being tortured, he was never charged with the crime. Meanwhile, the government of Pakistan and the Pearl family have filed a further appeal with the Supreme Court of Pakistan, asking it to review the decision to exonerate Sheikh over Pearl's murder.
That's all in this edition of World Today, but before I go, here's a heartwarming story of how a mother was united with a 3-month-old child who she gave birth to in coma because of COVID complications. Kelsey Townsend met her 3-month-old daughter outside the womb for the first time on the 27th of January. She gave birth to Lucy on the 4th of November while in a medically induced coma after being diagnosed with COVID-19. Townsend spent nearly 3 months hospitalized with 75 days on life and lung support in a Madison hospital. The Townsend couple contracted COVID-19 despite taking all precautions. While Kelsey's husband Derek Townsend got better, his wife got worse. They had to get admitted. While Kelsey was still in coma, Derek looked after their newborn and other kids. Their reunion nearly 3 months later outside the hospital was absolutely emotional.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.